Stop scrolling. What you're about to hear was never meant for everyone. There are forces ancient, calculating forces that have spent decades convincing you that you're ordinary, that your struggles were random, that your isolation was coincidence, that the attacks on your peace, your family, your very soul were just life. But what if I told you everything they whispered to make you feel small was a lie? This is not a coincidence that you're here right now, at this exact moment, at this exact second in history. The algorithms didn't bring you here. Heaven did. You see, there's something they don't want you to know, something that would change everything if you truly understood it. For years, decades even, you felt it, haven't you? That pull, that knowing, that sense that you were meant for something more. They tried to silence it through betrayal, through loss, through seasons of crushing silence where even God seemed absent. They whispered, you were too old, too late, too broken, but you're still here. And the very fact that you survived what was meant to destroy you, that alone should tell you something. You are not who they said you were. Between now and the 26th of June, there is a window, a sacred window that heaven has opened specifically for those who have been overlooked, dismissed, counted out. The angels are watching, not with judgment, but with anticipation, because they know what hell tried to hide from you. Before we go any deeper, and thank you to every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and plant that seed of faith. But know this, what I'm about to reveal to you in the next few minutes will explain why your life has felt like a battlefield, why you've been under siege, why the enemy has fought so hard to keep you from this very moment. Because once you understand what you really are, what you really carry, what happened next made the darkness tremble. Let's begin. They thought they could distract you forever. But heaven just pressed pause on everything around you, your phone, your thoughts, even time itself, to deliver this message directly into your spirit. What you're experiencing right now isn't chance. It's divine intervention, a holy hijacking of your timeline. Because there's something you need to know before the 26th of June arrives. You didn't stumble here. You were intercepted. For months, maybe years, you felt it building, that restlessness in your chest, that knowing in your bones that something was coming, something was shifting. You couldn't name it, couldn't explain it to anyone else, but it was there, pressing, waiting, growing heavier with each passing day. That wasn't anxiety, that was prophecy whispering your name. You see, the enemy has been working overtime to keep you distracted, to flood your mind with noise, your heart with worry, your days with empty busyness. Because he knows, hell knows, that when heaven finally gets your undivided attention, everything changes. And right now, in this sacred moment, you have stepped into what the spirit realm calls a divine interruption. Heaven never yells when it inspects. When God wants to examine your heart, when angels need to measure your readiness, when the Most High is preparing to move in your life, it doesn't come with trumpets. It doesn't come with fanfare. It comes with silence. Sacred, heavy, unmistakable silence that makes your soul stand at attention. That's what you're feeling right now. Not emptiness, not abandonment, surveillance. Divine surveillance. You've been asking God why it's been so quiet lately, why your prayers feel like they're hitting the ceiling, why the breakthrough feels delayed, the answers postponed, the relief just out of reach. But what if I told you that the silence wasn't God pulling away? What if the quiet was actually God leaning in closer than ever before? You're not being ignored. You're being observed. Every choice you've made in secret, every tear you've cried when no one was watching, every moment you chose forgiveness over bitterness, hope over despair, faith over fear, it's all been recorded, written down, witnessed by beings you cannot see but who know your name better than you know theirs. The angels aren't delivering messages right now. They're watching. They're measuring. They're waiting to see what you'll do when heaven goes quiet and earth gets loud. When the noise of the world tries to drown out the whisper of eternity. When your flesh screams for comfort, but your spirit knows you're being tested for something greater. This is the proving ground of the chosen ones, not the stage where everyone can see you, not the platform where people applaud your faith, but the hidden place, the secret place, the place where only heaven bears witness to your surrender, where only God sees you choose obedience over explanation, trust over understanding, movement over hesitation. And you've been choosing right, even when it hurt, even when it didn't make sense, even when people walked away, doors closed, and dreams seemed to die. You kept choosing God. You kept choosing the narrow path. You kept saying yes to the voice that others couldn't hear. That's why you're here now. That's why this message found you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're proven. Not because you've arrived, but because you've endured. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've kept asking the right questions. The 26th of June isn't just another date on the calendar. It's a prophetic gate, a spiritual doorway that heaven has been preparing specifically for those who have learned to hear God in the silence. For those who have discovered that divine love sometimes speaks loudest when it appears to say nothing at all. You thought God was testing your patience. He was actually building your authority. You thought the delay was punishment. It was preparation. You thought the silence meant he wasn't listening. But he was positioning you for something that required you to move, not because you heard his voice, but because you trust his heart. This is where most people fall away. This is where the crowd thins out, because it's easy to follow God when he's speaking clearly, when the path is lit, when the next step is obvious. But it takes a chosen one to keep walking when the only sound is the echo of their own footsteps, to keep trusting when the only light is the memory of his faithfulness. You're not waiting for God anymore. God is waiting for your next move. And this time, the silence isn't a test of your faith. It's a testament to it. It's heaven saying, we trust this one. We trust them to move, not because they feel our presence, but because they know our character. We trust them to obey, not because they see the whole picture, but because they believe in the one who painted it. The angels have been watching you walk through the valley. Now they're watching to see if you'll climb the mountain, not with your strength, but with your surrender. Not with your wisdom, but with your willingness to be led by a God who loves you too much to leave you where you are. This divine interruption wasn't meant to comfort you. It was meant to commission you, because what's waiting on the other side of the 26th of June isn't just a blessing. It's a blueprint, not just favor, but fire, not just provision, but purpose that will burn through everything false and leave only what's eternal. The silence has been sacred. Now comes the sound of heaven moving on your behalf. They thought silence would confuse you. It awakened you instead. You've been wondering why the heavens have grown quiet, why the prayers that used to bring immediate comfort now seem to echo in empty space. Why the worship that once filled you with fire now feels like you're singing to walls. But what if I told you, the silence isn't punishment, it's positioning. You see, there comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when God stops speaking and starts watching. When heaven shifts from instruction mode to inspection mode. When the divine classroom becomes a divine courtroom. Not a courtroom of condemnation, courtroom of confirmation. Right now, as you listen to these words, you are sitting in the inspection room of heaven. The angels aren't debating your worthiness. They're measuring your readiness. There are scrolls with your name written on them, ancient scrolls that have been sealed until this very hour. And those scrolls don't contain your failures. They contain your assignment. But they can only be opened when heaven sees something specific in you. Not perfection, posture. You've been asking God to speak again. But God is saying, "Child, I already spoke. Now show me what you heard." This is the test most believers never encounter because they never advance far enough to face it. The test of obedience without applause. The test of faith without fanfare. The test of surrender when the only witness is silence itself. You thought you needed another word from heaven, but heaven is waiting for your response to the last word you received. Think back. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That instruction that came to you months ago, maybe years ago. That gentle but unmistakable nudge. That door you were told to close. That relationship you were called to end. That risk you were prompted to take. That forgiveness you were asked to extend. That seed you were instructed to plant. You've been carrying it like a weight in your chest, postponing it, reasoning with it, negotiating with heaven, as if God's instructions were suggestions rather than sacred commands. But the inspection room of heaven operates on different principles than the earth. Here, delayed obedience is still disobedience. Here, your intentions matter less than your actions. Here, your comfort is far less important than your calling. The silence you've been interpreting as abandonment, it's actually anticipation. Heaven is holding its breath, watching to see if you'll finally move, if you'll finally surrender, if you'll finally trust the voice you heard when the room was full of His presence. You've been praying for breakthrough, but breakthrough is on the other side of obedience. You've been asking for open doors, but the door was already unlocked. You just haven't reached for the handle. You've been crying out for confirmation, but confirmation came when He first whispered your name in the secret place. This moment, this very momentous, not about receiving new revelation. It's about activating old instruction. The angels assigned to your life have not departed, but they've shifted from messenger mode to witness mode. They're recording not what you say, but what you do. Not how you feel, but how you respond. Not your eloquence in prayer, but your obedience in silence. Heaven is not wondering if you're gifted, it's watching if you're ready. You see, there's something the enemy never understood about you. He thought if he could steal your voice, he could steal your power. He thought if he could silence heaven's audible presence, he could paralyze your faith. He thought if he could isolate you from confirmation, he could separate you from conviction. He was wrong. Your greatest weapon was never the volume of heaven's voice. It was your willingness to obey even when that voice became a whisper. Your strength was never found in feeling God's presence. It was demonstrated in trusting His character when you felt nothing at all. You didn't need thunder to move forward. You moved on the memory of His whisper. You didn't need burning bushes to know His will. You held fast to the instruction He gave you in the secret place. You didn't need crowds to cheer your obedience. You obeyed for an audience of one, and that posture of surrender in silence that makes more noise in heaven than 1,000 shouted prayers. The inspection room is not a place of judgment. It's a place of preparation. God doesn't bring you here to shame you for what you haven't done. He brings you here to ready you for what's about to be released through you. But that release is contingent on one thing: your response to the test of silence. You've been faithful in the small things when people were watching. Now heaven needs to know, will you be faithful in the great things when no one is applauding? You've been obedient when the path was clear. Now the question becomes, will you stay obedient when the path disappears into fog? This is where ordinary believers become chosen ones. This is where casual faith transforms into consecrated fire. This is where the crowd thins out and only the remnant remains. You are not ordinary. You never were. But extraordinary people face extraordinary tests. And right now, you're in the middle of the most sacred examination of your life. The silence around you isn't empty. It's expectant. It's pregnant with possibility. It's heavy with the weight of what's about to break forth once heaven sees your final surrender. Your obedience in this hour will not just unlock your next season. It will unlock your destiny. It will not just open your door. It will open doors for people you've never met, in places you've never been, for purposes you haven't even imagined yet. The inspection room of heaven is not a place of waiting. It's a place of weighing. And right now, your heart is on the scales. Not your performance, your posture. Not your perfection, your surrender. Heaven already knows what you're capable of. Now it's watching to see what you're willing to do. The angels have their pens ready. The scrolls are unrolled. Your name is written at the top, and at the bottom, there's a space waiting for heaven's final assessment. Will it read faithful in the storm or faithful in the silence? Will it say trusted with gifts or trusted with glory? Will the record show you were chosen for comfort or chosen for commission? The inspection is almost complete, but there's still time to show heaven what you're made of. There's still time to prove that your yes means more than your emotions, that your faith runs deeper than your feelings, that your surrender is stronger than your circumstances. The silence is about to break. But first, heaven needs to see you move. You keep asking for another word, another sign, another confirmation that what you heard in the stillness of your spirit was actually God speaking. But here's what heaven needs you to understand. When the Almighty is deadly serious, He doesn't repeat Himself. The instruction you received 3 months ago, 6 months ago, maybe even years ago, that one thing that made your stomach drop and your heart race, that moment when you knew beyond any shadow of doubt what He was asking you to do, that wasn't a suggestion. That was a divine decree. And the reason you haven't heard anything since, the reason the heavens have gone mysteriously quiet, it's not because God changed His mind. It's because the test has already begun. You see, chosen one, there's a difference between God speaking to give you comfort and God speaking to give you commands. Comfort can be repeated. Commands cannot. Because once a command is given from the throne room of eternity, heaven shifts into observation mode. The angels aren't writing new scrolls. They're watching to see if you'll obey the one already written. You've been treating His silence like abandonment. But what if I told you it's actually the highest form of respect? What if His quiet isn't punishment, it's promotion? Because God only stops explaining Himself to those He trusts, to move without explanation. Think about it. When you were spiritually young, He gave you signs, confirmations, dreams that repeated 3 times. But now you've graduated from the kindergarten of faith into the master class of trust. And in the master class, the teacher doesn't hold your hand. He watches to see if you learned the lesson. The instruction is still there, burning in your chest like a brand from heaven. You know exactly what it is, don't you? That one act of obedience you've been postponing. That conversation you need to have. That relationship you need to end. That place you need to leave. That thing you need to start. That word you need to speak. You've been waiting for courage. But courage isn't a feeling, beloved. Courage is obedience with trembling knees. You think you need to feel brave before you act. But every hero in Heaven's Hall of Fame felt terrified when they took their first step. The difference between the remembered and the forgotten isn't fearlessness. It's faithfulness in the face of fear. Moses' hand shook when he raised the rod. David's voice cracked when he faced Goliath. Esther's heart pounded when she approached the king. But they moved anyway, not because they felt ready, because they knew the one who had already made them ready. And you, chosen one, are more ready than you realize. Every betrayal that didn't break you was preparation. Every loss that didn't destroy you was training. Every night you cried yourself to sleep and still woke up standing was heaven building steel into your spine. You weren't just surviving those seasons, you were being forged in them. The enemy whispered you were being punished, but heaven knew you were being prepared. For this moment, for this instruction, for this level of trust where God doesn't need to explain himself because he knows you'll move on his word alone. You don't need another prophecy. You need to act on the one you already received. You don't need another dream. You need to wake up and live the one he already gave you. You don't need another confirmation. You need courage. And here's the secret: they don't tell you about divine instructions. They come with an expiration date. Not because God's love expires, but because opportunities do. There are doors that only stay open for a season. There are people who are only positioned to receive your obedience for a window of time. There are moments when heaven holds its breath, waiting to see if you'll step through the threshold before it closes. The 26th of June isn't arbitrary. It's prophetic. It's the sound of that window beginning to creak on its hinges. You've been asking, God, speak to me again. But he's been saying, child, obey what I already said. The silence isn't punishment. It's the sound of heaven holding space for your yes. The quiet isn't abandonment. It's anticipation. Because on the other side of your obedience isn't just personal breakthrough. It's generational shift. It's bloodline freedom. It's the sound of chains that held your family for decades finally snapping in two. Your delayed obedience isn't just affecting you. It's affecting everyone connected to you. There are people whose freedom is tied to your faithfulness. There are doors that won't open for others until you walk through yours. There are testimonies that can't be born until you say yes to the thing that terrifies you most. The instruction hasn't changed. The deadline is approaching. The angels are watching, not with judgment in their eyes, but with expectation, because they've seen what happens when a chosen one finally stops asking questions and starts taking steps. They've witnessed the supernatural acceleration that follows supernatural surrender. Heaven isn't waiting for your feelings to catch up. Heaven is waiting for your feet to move forward. The final instruction has already been given. The only question that remains is this: will you trust the one who gave it enough to obey it, even with trembling knees? Heaven keeps records, not the kind that condemn you, but the kind that commission you. And right now, chosen one, there's a file with your name on it. Every hesitation has been documented. Every maybe tomorrow has been logged. Every time you felt the pull but chose comfort instead. It's all there. But listen carefully. This isn't about shame. This is about awakening. You see, when you delay what God has whispered, something happens in the unseen realm. The gate that was prepared to swing open to trembles. The scroll that was ready to unfurl pauses. The angel assigned to move on your behalf stands perfectly still, not in judgment, in waiting. You thought delay was neutral. You thought later was just later. But in the economy of heaven, delayed obedience carries a price. Not a punishment price, a positioning price. Because every moment you hesitate, someone else remains in bondage. Every day you postpone your yes, a breakthrough gets postponed. Every season you choose safety over surrender, generations wait for their deliverance. This is the weight you've been feeling. This pressure in your chest, this restlessness in your spirit. It's not anxiety, it's accountability. Heaven is pressing in because heaven is running out of patience with your excuses. And yes, they were excuses, weren't they? You said you needed more clarity, but clarity comes through obedience, not before it. You said you needed more confirmation, but confirmation was in the burning of your bones, the stirring of your soul, the sleepless nights when God wouldn't let you rest. You said you needed more time, but time is exactly what you've been wasting. Chosen one, look at me. Feel the weight of this moment. This is not a pep talk. This is not motivation. This is a divine subpoena. Heaven is calling you to account, not to condemn you, but to commission you. Because the time for maybe is over. The 26th of June isn't arbitrary. It's appointed. It's the line in the sand that heaven has drawn, the deadline that hell is dreading. Because hell knows that if you cross that line in obedience, something breaks loose that cannot be contained. Every prophet had a moment like this. Every chosen vessel faced this crossroads. The moment when delay became disobedience, when hesitation became rebellion, when I'll think about it became, I refuse. But you're not going to refuse, are you? Because something in you knows. Something deeper than fear, stronger than doubt, louder than logic. Something that recognizes the sound of your name being called from the throne room of God. Something that remembers you were born for such a time as this. The recording angels have been watching. They've documented every tear you've cried in secret, every prayer you've whispered in desperation, every moment you stood when falling would have been easier. They've recorded your faithfulness in the small things, your integrity when no one was watching, your worship in the wilderness. And now they're recording something else. Your response to this moment, your decision at this crossroads, your choice between comfort and calling. You feel it, don't you? The shift in the atmosphere, the electricity in the air. That's not emotion. That's the realm of the spirit responding to divine urgency. The very air around you is pregnant with possibility, thick with destiny, heavy with the weight of what's about to be born through your obedience. But it requires movement. It demands decision. It will not wait for you to feel ready. Ready is a luxury the chosen don't get. Ready is for those who have time to waste. But you've been prepared. Prepared through pain, refined through rejection, strengthened through suffering. You are as ready as you'll ever be. The question is, are you willing? Because willing is different than ready. Willing says yes before understanding. Willing moves before seeing. Willing trusts the voice more than the circumstances. Heaven is asking for your willing, not your wisdom, not your strategy, not your plan. Your willing. Your trembling, uncertain, scared, but surrendered willing. And if you give it, if you cross this line, if you step through this door before the 26th of June, something breaks open in the spirit realm that has been sealed for decades. Generational strongholds crumble. Bloodline curses snap. Family patterns that have repeated for centuries suddenly stop. Not gradually. Suddenly. This is why the resistance has been so fierce. Why your mind has been under attack. Why everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. Because hell sees what heaven sees. You are not just another believer. You are a key, a weapon, a game changer. And the moment you stop delaying and start delivering, the moment you move from hesitation to activation, everything changes. The recording stops. The waiting ends. The angels move. And the very thing that hell fought so hard to prevent becomes the very thing that destroys its stronghold over your bloodline forever. This is not a suggestion, chosen one. This is a summons. And the angels are witnesses to your decision. What will be recorded in heaven about this moment? What will the file with your name say about what you chose when everything was on the line? The pen is poised, the record is open, and time is almost up. They thought if they confused your emotions long enough, you'd forget what he told you to do. You've been standing at this gate for months now, haven't you? Circling it, praying around it, fasting near it, declaring over it, but never walking through it. Because somewhere along the way, you started believing that obedience was supposed to feel good. That surrender was supposed to come with goosebumps. That when God speaks, your flesh would line up and salute. But that's not how this works, chosen one. That's never been how this works. Your feelings are not your compass. Your emotions are not your GPS. Your comfort is not your confirmation. God is not waiting for you to feel ready. He's watching to see if you'll move anyway. Heaven won't move before you. It will only move with you. Listen to me carefully. That thing he whispered to you at 3 a.m. when the house was quiet and your heart was loud, that wasn't a suggestion. That wasn't a maybe someday instruction. That was your assignment, your key, your gate opener. And you've been trying to negotiate with it ever since. You've been editing the instruction, softening the edges, making it more palatable, more reasonable, more manageable. But obedience doesn't come with an editing feature. You can't customize the command. You can't put conditions on the calling. The gate doesn't care how you feel about what's required to open it. You see, this is where most people get stuck. They think obedience is an emotion. They think surrender is a feeling. They wait for the butterflies, the tears, the overwhelming sense of peace before they move. But chosen one, obedience is not an emotion, it's a decision. It's not a feeling, it's footsteps. God is not inspecting your heart rate when you pray. He's watching your trajectory when you walk. You've been in the courtroom of your own mind for too long, arguing the case, presenting evidence for why the timing isn't right, why the cost is too high, why the risk is too great. But heaven isn't interested in your opening arguments. Heaven is waiting for your closing statement, and that statement is written in movement, not words. Stop waiting for courage to find you. Courage is not a prerequisite for obedience. It's a byproduct of it. You think David felt brave when he ran toward Goliath? You think his knees weren't shaking? You think his heart wasn't pounding? But he ran anyway. Not because he felt fearless, but because he knew who stood behind him. Not because the giant looked small, but because his God was infinite. That's the kind of obedience that splits seas and stops the sun. The kind that moves before it feels ready. The kind that says yes before it understands the full plan. Your emotions have been your excuse for too long. I don't feel led. I don't have peace about it. Something doesn't feel right. But what if your feelings have been compromised? What if fear has been masquerading as discernment? What if delay has been disguised as wisdom? The enemy doesn't fight your potential. He fights your obedience, because he knows that one act of radical surrender can undo decades of his work in your bloodline. You've been carrying that instruction like a burden when it was meant to be your breakthrough. That thing you've been avoiding, postponing, negotiating with, that's not your problem. That's your promotion. God doesn't give you instructions to torture you. He gives them to position you. And right now, you're being positioned for something that requires you to move past the gate of emotion into the realm of pure obedience, where feelings don't get a vote, where comfort doesn't get a chair at the table, where your next step is determined not by how you feel, but by what he said. This is the test most never pass, not because they're not called, but because they're waiting for obedience to feel easier. But obedience is never easy. If it were easy, it wouldn't be obedience, it would be preference. The angels are watching not for your worship, though they love your worship. Not for your prayers, though they carry your prayers. They're watching for your movement. They're waiting to see if you'll walk when walking costs everything. Because the gate you're standing in front of doesn't respond to emotion. It doesn't open to feelings. It doesn't swing on sentiment. This gate, this specific gate that leads to your next dimension, only recognizes one key: obedience, not partial obedience, not eventual obedience, not conditional obedience, complete, immediate, uncomfortable obedience. That instruction you received, that crystal clear directive that's been burning in your spirit, stop treating it like a suggestion. Stop shopping it around for second opinions. Stop waiting for it to make sense to everyone else. Execute it. Not tomorrow when you feel stronger. Not next week when the timing feels better. Not next month when you've figured out all the details. Now, today, this hour, because heaven is not waiting for your emotions to catch up. Heaven is waiting for your feet to move forward. And when they dow and you finally step through that gate of obedience, you'll discover something that will take your breath away. The very thing you were afraid would destroy you becomes the thing that establishes you. The very instruction you resisted becomes the foundation of your restoration. The very step you avoided becomes the stairway to your acceleration. God doesn't ask for your feelings. He asks for your faithfulness. And faithfulness looks like footsteps, not fireworks. The gate is open, chosen one. Your emotions will never unlock it. Only your obedience will. And once you walk through once, you finally stop negotiating and start moving, you'll realize that courage was never what you needed. You needed to discover that obedience is its own form of worship. And worship, true worship, always moves heaven. Your move. They thought silence would weaken you. They were wrong. You see, chosen one, there's something about the atmosphere around your life that has shifted. Something you can feel but can't quite name. The air itself feels different. Heavier. More. Sacred. And you've been wondering why. Why the prayers feel different. Why worship doesn't hit the same. Why even your tears seem to carry more weight than they used to. Let me tell you what's happening. You're not alone. You're surrounded, but not by applause, not by crowds, not by encouragement. You're surrounded by eyes, heavenly eyes. The courtroom of heaven is in session, and you are both the witness and the evidence. You didn't lose God's attention. You gained God's inspection. There's a difference between being watched by the world and being observed by heaven. The world watches for entertainment. Heaven observes for authorization. The world looks for flaws. Heaven searches for faithfulness. And right now, as you sit here feeling like you're in some kind of spiritual waiting room, understand this. The waiting room is actually the examination room. You've been trusted with silence. Do you understand the weight of that? Most people panic when God goes quiet. They assume rejection. They fear abandonment. They start making noise, trying to get heaven's attention back. But you've learned something rare, something most never discover. You've learned that when the voice of God becomes a whisper, it's not because he's distant. It's because he's close, so close that only those who've trained their hearts to hear him can catch what he's saying. And what he's saying is this: I'm watching you now, not to catch you failing, to confirm you're ready. You see, there are seasons when God speaks loudly. Those are the training seasons, the learning seasons, the seasons when you need instruction, correction, direction. But then there are seasons when God goes silent. Those aren't punishment seasons. Those are proving seasons, testing seasons, seasons when heaven leans in to see if what you learned in the light, you'll live out in the shadows. This is warfare, but not the kind you think. This isn't spiritual combat where you fight demons and rebuke principalities. This is witness warfare. The realm of the Spirit is watching your response to silence. They're recording how you handle uncertainty. They're documenting whether you worship when you feel nothing, whether you obey when you hear nothing, whether you trust when you see nothing. The angels are writing down your response. Every morning you choose to rise when your soul wants to stay down. Every moment you whisper thank you when your heart wants to scream, why me? Every time you choose faith over fear, hope over hurt, trust over torment. It's all being recorded, not by an angry judge looking for evidence to condemn you, by a loving Father gathering proof that you're ready for what he's been preparing. You think you've been forgotten. You've been selected for a level of trust that most will never experience. Because God only goes silent with those he knows can handle the weight of his presence without needing the comfort of his voice. This is why your discernment has sharpened, why you can sense things others miss, why you feel spiritual shifts before they happen. You've been living in the sacred silence, and silence teaches you to hear with more than your ears. You hear with your spirit now. You feel with your soul. You know things you were never taught because in the quiet, heaven has been downloading wisdom directly into your heart. But here's what's about to happen. Here's why the atmosphere has been so heavy, so intense, so expectant. The observation period is ending. The examination is almost complete. And when heaven finishes gathering evidence of your faithfulness in the dark, the release won't be gentle. It won't be gradual. It will be sudden, overwhelming, undeniable. You've been asking God to speak. He's been waiting for you to prove. You don't need him to speak to still choose to follow. You've been crying out for his presence. He's been testing whether you'll honor his presence even when you can't feel it. You've been begging for signs and wonders. He's been watching to see if you'll be faithful in the ordinary, the mundane, the silent spaces where no miracles happen but your heart still says yes. This isn't warfare, this is witness. And every single day you've remained standing. Every night you've fallen asleep still believing. Every moment you've chosen love over bitterness, forgiveness over revenge, faith over fear. It's all been evidence. Evidence that you're not just a believer. You're a carrier, a vessel, a weapon in the hands of the Most High. The silence wasn't rejection. It was reverence. Heaven going quiet because something holy was happening. Something sacred was being formed. Something eternal was taking shape in the secret place of your surrender. And now the angels are putting down their pens. The evidence has been gathered. The verdict is in. You passed a test you didn't even know you were taking. You proved faithful in a season you didn't understand. You remained standing when everything in you wanted to fall. The observation is over. The release has begun. And what's about to unfold won't just bless you. It will vindicate every moment of doubt, every season of silence, every day you chose to trust when trusting felt impossible. You are being watched for release, not reassurance, and the watching is almost over. They thought the pressure would crush you. Instead, it revealed what you're made of. You've been feeling it, haven't you? That weight pressing down on your chest that doesn't match anything happening in your natural circumstances. Bills are paid, health is stable, family is fine, but inside, there's a war raging that you can't explain to anyone because they wouldn't understand. They'd call it stress. They'd call it anxiety. They'd tell you to relax, but you know better. What you're feeling isn't emotional turbulence, it's spiritual intelligence. Your spirit is picking up frequencies from a battle that's been raging long before you were born. This pressure, this heaviness, this sense that something massive is at stake that's not your imagination running wild. That's your soul recognizing that you're standing at the epicenter of a generational showdown. The enemy isn't attacking where you are. He's terrified of where you're going. You see, hell has a filing system. And your name isn't just in one folder. It's in the urgent, priority, red alert section. Because what you carry isn't just about you. What flows through your bloodline doesn't stop with your generation. The enemy has studied your family tree. He's traced the patterns. He's seen the potential. And what he discovered made him panic. You are the gate, not a gate. The gate. The one through which generational curses are about to be shattered. The one through which ancestral chains are going to snap. The one through which the voices that have been silenced for decades are finally going to roar with holy fire. Your assignment isn't personal, it's generational. And that's exactly why this war feels so personal. Hell doesn't fight noise. Hell fights alignment. And you, chosen one, are dangerously aligned. Think about it. Why would an invisible enemy waste supernatural resources attacking someone who poses no threat? Why would darkness mobilize against someone who's going nowhere? The intensity of your warfare is the receipt for your importance. The magnitude of the attack is the measure of your assignment. They've been coming at you from every angle, haven't they? Your mind, your relationships, your finances, your health, your sleep. Even your dreams aren't safe. And you've wondered, what did I do to deserve this? But you're asking the wrong question. The question isn't what you did. The question is what you're about to do. Because generational warriors don't just break their own chains, they demolish the entire prison system. Every sleepless night where you wrestled with thoughts that weren't yours. Every relationship that turned toxic for no logical reason. Every door that slammed shut when you were more than qualified. Every time you felt like you were losing your mind, that wasn't random spiritual warfare. That was targeted demolition. Hell was trying to destroy the very foundation you're standing on because it knows what you're about to build. But here's what the enemy miscalculated. Here's where his intelligence failed him. He thought if he could break you before you broke through, the assignment would die with you. He thought if he could convince you that you were cursed instead of chosen, you'd never step into your authority. He thought if he could make you believe you were the problem instead of the solution, you'd surrender before the real battle even began. He was wrong, because what he didn't count on was the fire that burns in your bones, the flame that gets brighter under pressure, the steel that only gets stronger when it's tested. He didn't realize that every attack was actually boot camp. Every betrayal was basic training. Every season of isolation was advanced warfare preparation. You didn't just survive the attempts to destroy you. You transcended them. And now you're not the same person who entered this battle. You're not the naive believer who thought spiritual warfare was about shouting louder than the devil. You're not the wounded warrior hoping someone else would fight your battles. You've become something hell never saw coming. You've become unstoppable. Not because you're perfect, not because you have all the answers, not because you never feel afraid. You've become unstoppable because you've learned the secret that separates the chosen from the confused. This war was never about you. It was about what comes through you. The bloodline that tried to break you is about to be blessed because of you. The generational poverty that haunted your family is about to be replaced with generational wealth. The addiction patterns that destroyed your ancestors are about to be incinerated by your obedience. The silence that stole the voices of your foremothers is about to be shattered by your roar. This is why the pressure feels unbearable sometimes. You're not just carrying your own destiny, you're carrying the destiny of people who died without seeing their breakthrough. People who prayed prayers you're now the answer to. People who fought battles you're now finishing. Your assignment is generational. Your impact is eternal. Your victory is inevitable. Because heaven didn't just choose you for this season, heaven has been preparing your bloodline for this moment for generations. Every grandmother who prayed through tears, every grandfather who worked through injustice, every ancestor who held on to faith when circumstances screamed doubt, they were all building toward you. They were all planting seeds in a harvest they'd never see, but you would reap. You are not an accident. You are not a mistake. You are not a random selection. You are the culmination of generations of prayers. You are the answer to decades of intercession. You are the breakthrough that was prophesied before you were born. And now the time has come for you to step into the fullness of what your bloodline has been building toward. The enemy isn't fighting you because of who you are. He's fighting you because of who you're about to become. He's not afraid of your present, he's terrified of your future. He's not worried about your current level, he's panicking about your next dimension. Because he knows something you're just beginning to understand. When a generational warrior steps into their assignment, the shockwaves ripple through both heaven and hell. When a chosen one stops playing defense and starts playing offense, the entire spiritual climate shifts. When someone who was born to break chains finally picks up the keys, every prison door in their bloodline starts rattling. You are that someone. This is that moment, and what's about to happen next will be remembered in heaven for generations to come. The war is personal because your assignment is generational. And generational assignments come with generational authority. The same authority that's been dormant in your family line for decades is now awakening in you. The same power that your ancestors carried but never fully activated is now pulsing through your veins. The enemy knows his time is short. He knows the window is closing. He knows that once you fully step into who you really are, the game changes forever. That's why the attacks have been so intense. That's why the pressure feels so personal. That's why this war seems to follow you everywhere you go. Because it's not just about you breaking free. It's about you setting an entire generation free. And that, chosen one, is exactly why you were born for such a time as this. The pressure you feel isn't punishment, it's promotion. The war you're in isn't condemnation, it's confirmation. You are the gate, and the gate is about to swing wide open. They thought your silence meant surrender. They were wrong. You see, chosen one, there's something the realm of darkness never understood about you. They measured your voice by its volume. They judged your power by your protests. They assumed that because you didn't shout back, you had given up. But what they failed to recognize was that you weren't being silent because you were defeated. You were being silent because you were being positioned. Every moment you chose to bow instead of fight back, every tear you swallowed instead of screaming, every night you whispered, "Yes, Lord," instead of demanding answers, all of it was being recorded. Not by human eyes, but by angelic scribes. Your silence wasn't emptiness. It was the sound of prophecy being written in real time. You thought nobody saw, but heaven was taking notes. There's a difference between the obedience that seeks applause and the obedience that seeks alignment. Most people obey when the spotlight is on, when the crowd is watching, when there's something to gain. But you obeyed in the dark. You said yes when no one was looking. You surrendered when there was no guarantee of reward. And that kind of obedience, that trembling, costly, secret kind of obedience, that's the kind that moves mountains in the spirit realm. Your yes wasn't just heard, it was archived. Right now, as I speak these words, there are scrolls in heaven with your name written across the top. Not because you were perfect, but because you were present. Not because you never stumbled, but because you never stopped rising. Every time you chose God's will over your own comfort, another line was added to those scrolls. Every time you forgave when you wanted revenge, every time you blessed when you felt cursed, every time you trusted when you couldn't see, all of it was being documented in the courts of glory. The angels weren't just watching, they were recording. And here's what hell never saw coming. Your private obedience was becoming public authority. While they were focused on your pain, heaven was focused on your persistence. While they were celebrating your struggles, God was sealing your strength. Your willingness to say yes in the valley was qualifying you to speak from the mountaintop. This next act of yours, this trembling, fearful, tearful yes you're about to give, it's not just another decision, it's prophecy fulfilled. It's the moment when everything you've sown in secret gets harvested in glory. It's the instant when your hidden faithfulness becomes visible favor. You're not just about to walk through a door, you're about to awaken a realm. There are dimensions of the Spirit that only respond to one thing: complete surrender, not partial compliance, not conditional obedience, complete, trembling, tear-soaked surrender. And when that kind of yes is spoken, when it rises from a heart that has been broken and rebuilt, tested and proven, crushed and refined, it doesn't just echo in your room, it reverberates through every level of heaven. The scrolls don't just open, they ignite. You've been asking God to move, but He's been waiting for you to move first. Not in your strength, but in your surrender. Not with confidence, but with consecration. Because the greatest moves of God in history were never preceded by human certainty. They were preceded by human availability. By someone saying, "I don't understand, but I trust you. I don't see the plan, but I'll follow anyway. I'm afraid, but I'm available." That's you right now. afraid but available, trembling but trusting. And when you speak that yes, when it finally breaks free from your lips like a bird released from a cage, something happens in the spirit realm that cannot be undone. Angels shift from watching to working. What was delayed becomes delivered. What was held back becomes released. Not because you finally got your act together, but because you finally got your heart surrendered. The oil that's about to pour over your life isn't reward for perfection. It's recognition of persistence. For years, they told you that you weren't qualified, that you weren't ready, that you weren't enough. But qualification was never about your ability. It was about your availability. And you've been available when others were absent. You've been faithful when others were fickle. You've been steady when others were scattered. Your yes carries weight because your journey carried cost. When that door swings open, and it will swing open, it won't be because you finally learned to speak louder. It will be because you finally learned to surrender deeper. The realm of the spirit doesn't respond to volume. It responds to vulnerability. It doesn't move for the proud. It moves for the prostrate. Your tears were not weakness. They were worship. Your struggles were not setbacks. They were setups. Your silence was not surrender. It was strategy. And now, chosen one, it's time. Time for the yes that's been building in your chest like thunder in a storm cloud. Time for the surrender that's been pressing against your ribs like a bird against a cage. Time for the obedience that will be written in scrolls and spoken of in heaven. This yes will not be easy, but it will be eternal. This yes will not be comfortable, but it will be complete. This yes will not be understood by man, but it will be honored by heaven. The angels are not just watching, they are waiting. Waiting for the moment when your will finally bows completely to His. Waiting for the instant when your yes becomes so pure, so total, so surrendered that it cracks open dimensions. You are one yes away from everything changing. Not just in your circumstances, but in your calling. Not just in your situation, but in your spiritual authority. Not just in your life, but in your legacy. The scrolls are ready. The oil is prepared. The door is positioned. All that remains is your yes. They thought the silence meant God had forgotten you. They were wrong. You see, chosen one, there's something about divine timing that the enemy never understood. He thought if he could delay you long enough, discourage you deep enough, isolate you completely enough, you'd give up. He calculated your breaking point. He studied your weaknesses. He sent wave after wave of attack, thinking eventually you'd surrender. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't know, is that every tear you cried in secret was being collected in heaven's vials. Every night you stayed on your knees when your body wanted to collapse was being recorded in the books of eternity. Every time you chose to bless God's name when circumstances screamed, "Curse him," heaven took notice. You didn't just survive the storm, you learned to dance in the rain. And now, right now, as you hear these words, something is shifting in the invisible realm. Not because you finally got your act together, not because you prayed the perfect prayer or found the right formula. Heaven is moving because you moved first. You took that step when stepping felt impossible. You said yes when yes felt dangerous. You trusted when trust felt foolish. Movement unlocks miracles. Chosen one. And you have been moving, crawling, stumbling, limping forward, but moving nonetheless toward the voice that called you out of darkness into His marvelous light. They expected you to crumble under the pressure. Instead, you became a diamond. Listen carefully. The warfare you've endured wasn't random. It was strategic. Hell saw the crown on your head before you did. They recognized the oil on your life while you were still wiping tears from your eyes. That's why the attacks were so personal, so relentless, so calculated to make you question everything you believed about yourself and your God. But here's what they miscalculated. Every weapon they formed against you only made you stronger. Every door they slammed shut only redirected you toward the door God had already prepared. Every voice that said you weren't enough only made God's voice saying you are mine ring louder in your spirit. You didn't fight fire with fire, you transcended the battlefield entirely. While they were busy trying to drag you down to their level, you were being lifted higher. While they were focused on your past, God was writing your future. While they were counting your failures, heaven was counting your faithfulness. The fire you walked through didn't consume you, it crowned you. Do you understand what that means? Every trial that should have broken you only added another jewel to your crown. Every betrayal that should have made you bitter only made you better. Every season of waiting that should have made you give up only made you give into His will, His timing, His perfect plan. You are not who you were when this journey began. The person who started walking this path of pain and purpose would not recognize the warrior you've become. You carry yourself differently now. There's a weight to your presence, a depth to your peace, a fire in your eyes that wasn't there before. This isn't blessing, chosen one. This is alignment. And when heaven aligns with a surrendered heart, when divine purpose meets human obedience, when God's will encounters a willing vessel, kingdoms shake, atmospheres shift, impossibilities become inevitabilities. You thought you were praying for breakthrough. God was preparing you for breakthrough. There's a difference. When you pray for something, you're asking God to change your circumstances. When you're prepared for something, God is changing you to handle what's coming. And what's coming toward your life right now carries such weight, such glory, such responsibility, that the old you couldn't have carried it without being crushed. But you're not the old you anymore, are you? Conclusion. Chosen one, as we come to the close of this sacred moment together, I need you to remember 3 eternal truths that will anchor your soul in the days ahead. First, your obedience in the quiet places has never gone unnoticed. Every tear you've cried in secret, every prayer you've whispered in the dark, every moment you chose to trust when nothing made sense, all of it has been recorded in heaven's archives. Your silence was not surrender. It was the sound of destiny being written. Second, the 26th of June deadline is not about pressure, it's about divine precision. God's timing is not arbitrary, it's appointed, and you, beloved, have been positioned for such a time as this. The angels are watching not with judgment, but with anticipation, because they know what hell tried to hide from you. Third, your yes, trembling though it may be, carries the power to shift realms. This is not about feeling ready, it's about being available. This is not about understanding everything. It's about trusting the one who sees everything. But hear me clearly. You are not walking this path alone. Right here, through this message, through this community of believers, you are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses who understand your struggle, who felt your pain, who've wrestled with the same divine calling that burns in your bones. God has not brought you this far to abandon you now. Even when His voice seems distant, His hands are still working. Even when the way seems unclear, His purpose remains unshakable. He is the same God who made a way through the Red Sea, who brought water from rocks, who turned mourning into dancing, and He is not finished with your story. So I ask you this. What if this moment, this very second as you sit listening to these words, what if this is the moment your entire life has been leading to? What if every struggle was preparation, every setback was set up, every delay was divine strategy to bring you to this threshold of breakthrough? Before I pray for you, I want you to know that this community stands with you. In the comments below, share what God is stirring in your heart. Don't hold back. Your testimony might be the very word someone else needs to hear. Ask your questions. We're here to pray with you, to believe with you, to stand in the gap when your faith feels weak. And if this message has touched your spirit, please share it. There's someone in your circle, a friend, a family member, maybe someone you haven't spoken to in years who desperately needs to hear that they are chosen, that they are not forgotten, that their breakthrough is closer than they think. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart. for allowing these words to penetrate the deep places. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel, not for numbers, but for community. Because we're building something here, a family of believers who refuse to give up, who choose to rise when others retreat, who know they were born for such a time as this. Now, let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, I come before your throne right now with my hand on the shoulder of everyone listening to this message. You see them, Lord. You see the battles they've fought in secret. You see the tears they've cried when no one was watching. You see the faith they've held on to even when everything around them said to let go. Father, I pray that you would breathe fresh wind into their weary souls. Where they feel forgotten, remind them they are engraved on the palms of your hands. Where they feel weak, let them know that your strength is made perfect in their weakness. Where they feel afraid, surround them with your perfect love that casts out all fear. Lord, for those who are standing at their own, the 26th of June moment, whatever that obedience looks like in their life, give them supernatural courage. Not the absence of fear, but the grace to move forward in spite of it. Let them know that you are not asking for perfection. You are asking for availability. Open doors that no man can shut. Provide resources they never saw coming. Align divine connections. Accelerate their breakthrough. Let the same power that raised Christ from the dead work mightily in their situations right now. And Father, I pray for a peace that surpasses all understanding to guard their hearts and minds. Let them sleep tonight knowing they are held, they are loved, they are chosen. Remind them that their story is not over, their greatest chapter is still being written. We trust you, Lord. We surrender to your timing. We say yes to your will, even when we cannot see the full picture. Have your way in our lives. In the mighty name of Jesus, amen and amen. Rest well, chosen one. Your breakthrough is closer than you think.